Well, it's kind of funny because I got a good story about that. We're on a train going from New York to Washington, D.C. because it seemed like the best way to get there for the next series, and it was in D.C. And who's sitting behind us but Bill Bradley, the basketball player. And he asked me the same question. What about teamwork? I said, well, teamwork has a lot to do with leadership and trying to make everybody work together as a group. I said, if you'll notice the best managers and coaches in all of sports, they take all the blame when something goes wrong, and they don't take any of the credit when something goes right. Like you watch these great leaders, they don't take credit when they win, but they take the heat off their players when they lose. They say, I didn't get them prepared well enough, and that's a good quality of leadership. But the teamwork thing is the mesh of the players and umpires working together to get the ultimate out of what they're trying to do. You don't really realize, but in baseball, when an umpire goes out on a fly ball, somebody's got to go cover his base. Somebody's got to go over there. And that's what, for years they passed down check swing, asking for help, And then years later, we put in replay. And when we first put in replay, the umpires really didn't want it. They thought they were trying to take their jobs. I said, no, you don't understand. They're not going to have some computer geek in that replay room calling the plays. It's going to be an umpire just like you. And it's like having another umpire on the field to help you get the call right. And that's the most important thing, is for you to get the call right. And that's another thing I've always had a pet peeve about, is they said, well, you had so many controversial calls. No, I didn't. I didn't have any controversial calls. I was either right or I was wrong. So it's pretty simple when you put it in perspective like that. And working together means that you have to get everybody on the same page. I remember Al Barlick, who was a Hall of Fame umpire. He went and told me one day, he said, you need to help everybody that you work with to know exactly, what to do. Because if they're in trouble, you're in trouble. So you need to help them get as good as they can be. And there was an old retired general lived over in Tampa named Marty Steele. And he said the same thing. He said, my job is to teach all of my underlings, meaning all of the soldiers below me, everything that I know, and give them the best chance of succeeding if I go down in battle. And it makes a lot of sense that you have to help everybody with you be as good as they can be. Well, he knows that he has to give you a look at the pitches. Johnny Bench is a perfect example. Johnny's head was this big and his shoulders are this wide. He knew that if he moved inside, you couldn't see anything. So he sat right behind the middle of the plate, and he's the one that created framing the pitches, is what they call today. And he did that because he knew that the umpire couldn't see if he caught the ball here or if he moved inside to take away his vision. And yet then they had another catcher at the same time named Jerry Grody. And if you missed a pitch when Jerry Grody was behind the plate, it was your fault, because he let you see every pitch. If he moved inside, he was almost on the ground. But they know that, and they work with you. And if they think you missed a pitch, they'll say, I thought that might have caught the corner. But they would never turn around and show you up, because they know that the respect from both sides, both dugouts, depends on how well the catchers are communicating with the umpires. I look at it this way. I needed to make the profession as good as it could be. And I worked as hard as I could to get it that way. I fought for more money for these guys, and baseball's just not going to pay the umpires what they pay the players. But I fought so these guys could have a good living. We had times where we'd have kids at home where umpires needed to go home, so we negotiated that in a contract. If there was something that warranted you going home, you got time off for it. And I think I worked really hard at trying to make the whole profession better. But, and I tell people this all the time, you don't really get a pat on the back unless it's from your peers. And there are times when a pitcher will walk off and he's got a shutout or a one-run game, and he wins the game, and he says, nice job. And that's nice, that's okay. But it means a lot more if it comes from a pitcher that walks off and he's losing 1-0. And he says, thanks for working hard. And there were some pitchers that did that. There was Curt Schilling, Greg Maddux. Even when they were losing, they'd walk up and say, thanks, good job, you know. And that makes it all worthwhile. And the coolest thing about this is you're witnessing a piece of history every day. You're part of the game. You're part of this big scenario every day. And that was probably the greatest thing about doing my job. My mother used to make me go talk to her kids when she was a school teacher. She taught 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, depending on who was pregnant. And so I'd go talk to the kids, and invariably when I'd open it up for questions, one kid in the back of the room would say, what's your favorite team? And I would say the Raiders. And it would take them 3 questions before that same little boy would say, hey, the Raiders are a football team. And then I would have to explain, you can't have a favorite team because you're there to make it fair for everybody. And it's really funny because probably the most watched play that I had in a playoff was the one where Alex Rodriguez slapped the ball out of Arroyo's glove at first base. And they threw stuff on the field because I changed the call in Yankee Stadium. And they threw everything at us. Somebody threw their car keys at the third base umpire. But because the media took up for us, the next day when we walked on the field in Yankee Stadium, the people gave us an applause. They actually stood up and clapped. That was the only time I can remember they ever applauded me for going on the field. Yeah, you know, playing football in college and having to go over all this. See, I played quarterback at Elon, and having that responsibility, having to know where everybody goes and all that stuff. You didn't think about the people that are on the sideline. You didn't think about the people that are watching from. I didn't think about my parents being there because I had so much to dwell on. And when you're umpiring, your focus is the same way. And so I didn't have that happen to me like a lot of younger kids when they had their first big league game. I didn't have that. And I'd played for the national championship in AIA Division I. So going on a baseball field was not new to me. I'd played ball as a kid, and I was umpiring college games before I got out of college. So when I went to the big leagues, I thought, well, and that was probably arrogant of me to think like this, well, I should be here. But I was comfortable with it. And so it was easier for me than for most people. Oh, there's so many of those. I was behind the plate when Clay Buchholz threw his only no-hitter, and it was like his second day in the big leagues. I was at first base for Nolan Ryan's 5th no-hitter, which no one had ever thrown 5 at the time. My first year in the big leagues, I was behind the plate for Willie McCovey's 500th home run. And the only reason I know that is because I read it on the scoreboard after he did it. I was very lucky. I got in at a unique time. I don't know how many, I must have had 6 or 7 commissioners I worked for. Some of them liked me, some of them didn't. But it was a unique thing about being a part of the game. You know, you don't realize that baseball's like a little city. And there's the umpire, there's the catcher, the batter, the pitcher. There's the ball boy that brings the baseballs out to you, right? And you don't realize he's just as important to the game like the bat boy, little things like that. One day I'm in Shea Stadium and the owner, Doubleday, Nelson Doubleday, he's stealing the balls from the ball boy over there by the dugout. And he's calling kids down to come get them. And he's handing these baseballs, these kids, you know. And he's the owner of the team. He can do what he wants to. But so I called the ball boy over and I wrote down on this ball, I said, baseball's pleading poverty and you're stealing them out of this game. And I said, give that to Doubleday. He came back the next inning with the other side of the ball and said, and you're throwing them out with reckless abandon. Oh, it's very special. It's just what you saw at the banquet last night at the aquarium. It's just it's awesome to get, you know, to reminisce with all these people. And there are people that have become friends of mine that didn't deal in baseball. You know, they dealt in basketball or football or whatever. I mean, Nora Lynn Finch, she's going in the Hall of Fame. She was Kay Yow's assistant when I was at Elon. And Kay used to say, we're going to watch the football team. She saw me play probably more times than my parents did. And we've been friends ever since. It's just a unique thing, and I used to see Jack Marin at these charity golf tournaments, or celebrity golf tournaments. And of course, Jerry Tolley, he was the football coach after I left Elon. He was the defensive coordinator when I was there. But you come back and it's like coming home. It's a unique feeling, and thank goodness they let me come. So I feel privileged to be here. We had a situation in LA. You remember Grady Little? Grady came out in the first inning, nothing's going on. But Brad Penny's pitching. This is the first night ever of a nighttime stock car race. Okay? So in the first inning, I think there was a guy on first base, one out, and there's nothing going on. He comes out to the mound. So I thought maybe Penny was hurt, so I walked out and said, "What's going on?" He said, "The reason we play so long is your strike zone's too small." I said, "Are you trying to get kicked out of the game?" He said, "No, but tonight's the first night stock car race and I'd like to see it." So I ended up kicking him out in the first inning. So I write the report to the office. He wanted to see a stock car race, so he got kicked out. They called the next day and said, "That can't be right." I said, "Oh yeah, it is, call him." Remember George Will? Uh-huh. George Will went to Frank Robinson one day and he said, "Let me tell you what Joe West did." Said there's a play at third base and he run all the way from first base to third base. And Frank said, "Just a minute. I know that's not correct because Joe hadn't run in 10 years." Oh, my last year was 73. And I left there with a full scholarship to go to umpire school. And 3 years later, I was making more money than both my parents. So, well, they were mad because they were school teachers, I dropped out of college with a full scholarship. They're going, "What are you, nuts?"